Good day everyone. Today, we will report the Module 2 of Reading in Philippine History, the analyzing of the significance of primary sources to the history of the Filipino people. This modules is a collection of primary sources that significantly contributed to the shaping of Philippine history. It analyzes the significance of primary sources to the grand narrative of the history of Filipino people by providing concrete facts and details coming from first-hand witnesses of the country's specific historic events. These primary sources are arranged in a way that they chronologically narrate past events. Each source is analyzed by its content and context. The historical significance of the context is likewise determined, and the purpose and object of the author are also studied. So, Module 2 contains 9 sections, and my tasks are Section 1 and 2. First, Section 1. Customs of the Tagalogs by Juan de Plasencia. This section shows the different practices and customs noted down by Fray Juan de Plasencia by his account, Customs of the Tagalog. Fray Juan de Plasencia, also known by his real name, Juan de Portocarrero, was one of the 7 children of Pedro Portocarrero. So, in this section, we will focus to the intended learning outcomes. First, determine practices and customs of the Tagalogs and visualize the type of community that Filipino had prior to the arrival of the Spaniards. These are the customs and practices of the Tagalog. Marriage customs. In the case of a divorce, if the wife would leave her husband for the sake of marrying another man, all her belongings plus a certain amount would be given to her former husband. However, if she chooses to leave and do not have any plans to marry, then all her dowry will be returned to her. And in the case of adoption, the children would receive double the value of how much they were brought to be adopted. At ang mga investigasyon at sentensya sa mga akusado ay babasahin at representa mismo sa kanilang mga katribo. According to Plasencia, there were no temples or sacred places in which would worship. The word simbahan means a place to worship which is constructed at a large house of the chief where people of the tribe go to celebrate festivals. They beat large and small drums successively during the feast, which usually lasted 4 days. Also, Naga-Anitos worship Anito, soul or spirit of ancestors. According to Plasencia, nakita din niya na ang mga Tagalogs ay sinasamba din nila yung Anit, the Naga-Anitos, dahil yun ang kaluluwa at espiritu ng kanilang mga ninuno. At ang Sibi, a temporary shed made on each side of the chief's house for the assembled people. At ang Bathala ay isa sa kanilang mga iniidolo at ang kanilang sinasamba. At sinasamba din nila ang araw, buwan, at iba pa. Even the stars or a particular dead man na siyang may kapasidad at matapang na nagproprotekta sa kanila. Superstitions customs. According to Plasencia, Filipino find omens or sign in every events they witness, either a good omens or a bad omens. Yun yung nakita ni Plasencia sa mga Tagalog. At isa sa mga examples at halimbawa nito ay when the Tigmamanugin bird sang, they would go home in fear that evil would befall them if they would continue their journey. And furthermore, the type of community that Filipino had prior to the arrival of Spaniards was the community of discrimination, inequality, and slavery. The second one, compare and contrast the pre-Hispanic customs to the Filipinos to the practices that the Spaniards introduced. So simply, if we compare the pre-Hispanic of the Filipino to the Spanish era, the situations are very different, from the gender equality to the inequality and the concept of civilization, and also from the sovereign Filipino to the reduced political power of the Filipino. The third one, explain the importance of the customs of the Tagalogs to the grand narratives of the Philippine history. And as I have researched, scholars like it because it covered numerous topics that are relevant in many disciplines. Political science, also political scientists, for instance, find it useful because it contains a lot of information about the social classes, political stratifications, and legal system of the Tagalog region. And last, evaluate the relevance of the documents to the present time. At last, if we evaluate the relevance of these documents to the present time, it talks about property rights, marriage rituals, burial practices, and the manner in which justice is dispensed in the Tagalog region. Okay, now let's proceed to section 2, my second task, Readers of the Sulusi documentary film. This section focuses on the documentary Readers of the Sulusi produced by Oak Tree Films. Readers of the Sulusi is a historical document produced by Oak Tree Films. Established in 1996, Oak Tree Films was founded by Zahirat Banu Kodli along with Lim Swat-Kien as COO and Jason Lai, the director of the Discontent. These are the intended learning outcomes. First, determine the different points presented in the documentary in understanding the long-standing peace problem in southern Philippines. These documents focus on the Zamboanga city depicting how the Spaniards defended the city with the fourth pillar as Spain's last stronghold and bastions of defense and economic expansion in the Southeast Asia, flourishing free trading in the area, and the adverse effects and repercussions when Europeans such as the English, Dutch, and Spanish who wanted to control the economy as well to colonize and Christianize. Okay, so as what I have researched, the documentary shows the Moro resistance to the Spanish and American colonial government in southern Philippines. The raids were facilitated by different indigenous groups of the Sulu region, including the Ilanons, Balangingi, Samals, and Tausugs. Second, identify the possible causes of the persisting cultural and religious issues that contribute to the tension between Islam and Christianity in the Philippines. So the conflict rooted to the religious discriminations and prejudice. The long-standing Moro conflict is rooted in the Spanish and American wars against the Moros. The southern Philippines has long been plagued with conflict rooted to the religious discriminations and prejudice. Moro Muslims have been fighting for self-determination, for them to have a voice and be recognized in a country where Christianity in the north. Under the Spanish rule, the propagation of Christianity heightened the prejudice against the Moros. In addition, Spain's efforts to control marine trade caused Moros to lose sources of livelihood, putting many of them in poverty. Under the American rule, thousands of Moros were killed by American soldiers in the Moro Crater Massacre. Third, explain the importance of the Readers of the Sulusi to the grand narrative of the Philippine history. So, this topic, Readers of the Sulusi, is important for determining how the Spaniards will govern the Filipino during the Spanish era. Although it has lesser value in modern world, right now, it is still important for us to trace the roots of who we are in the past. And lastly, evaluate the relevance of the documents to the present time. As we can see, it is a source of information that can compare and scrutinize in the early times. Okay, so this document serves as a way of enlightenment in the contemporary times where they will know the traditions of every colonizers who came in our country. So this is Kent Albufera, BS Ed 1, Batch 2, Major in English.
Good day everyone. By the way, I'm Macpinard Kating, Bachelor of Secondary Education, Major in English 1, Batch 2. So for this video, I will discuss my assigned topic, which is Kartilya ng Katipunan by Emilio Senior. In this topic, it focuses on the importance of the Kartilya ng Katipunan in Philippine history. Historians regard Emilio Jacinto as the brains of Katipunan. And Artemio Ricarte called him the Moses of the Filipino people, while Epifanio de los Santos considered him as the soul of the revolution and the eyes of the Katipunan. Emilio Jacinto was born on December 15, 1875 in Trosa, Manila. And he studied at the private school of Maestro Ferrer and later to Citizen. And he studied College of San Juan de Letran for his Bachelor of Art, and he transferred to the University of the Santo Tomas to study law. And he used the three pen names, which is Pinkian, Dimasilaw, and Cailio. And he joined GDK in 1894, and he was the youngest member at the age of 19 years old. And he was the fiscal, secretary, and editor, and later General of Katipunan. Director of the printing shop and library of Katipunan, and he advisor of the Supremo, but he died from malaria on April 16, 1899 at the age of 23 years old. And this is the 5 factors influential in the forming of the Katipunan of the Cordillera, which is the age of enlightenment, and the second one, French Revolution. The third one, Masonry, and the fourth one, the propaganda movement and the La Liga Philippine. And the age of enlightenment, it gave way to liberalism and classicism. And the 20th century, modernism. In this period, secret societies like the Freemasons were established, which is coffee house, newspapers, and literary salons flourished as the new basis for ideas to circulate the transfer. And the second one, which is French Revolution, was a period of social and political upheaval in France. It became the focal point for the development of all modern political ideologies. And the third one, Masonry. Masonry was introduced to the Philippines in 1856 when a Spanish naval officer organized a large Cavite under the auspices of the Portuguese Grand Orient de los Lusitano. However, through the roots of the Philippine Masonry exploded in 1889. When Marciano Lopez Haina organized the Lodja Revolution in Barcelona under the auspices of Grande Oriente, and the first one, the propaganda movement, was propelled by the execution of the three priests, which is Gamburza in 1875, which left a profound effect in including Rizal. After the execution, many Filipinos started questioning Spanish authorities and asked for reforms. And the last one, La Liga Filipina. La Liga Filipina was established by Jose Rizal when decided to return to the Philippines to continue to call for reforms through legal means. However, the operation of La Liga were captured when Jose Rizal arrested and exiled to Cavite. My second topic is all about the works of Luna and Amorsolo. Juan Luna and Fernando Amorsolo was the most important artist in Philippine history. Juan Luna was born on October 23, 1857 in Badong, Ilocos Norte, and he was third among the 7 children of Joaquin Luna de San Pedro y Posadas from Zambales and Lorena Bovicio y Achita from La Union. And he married Maria de la Paz Pardo de Cabrera, and they have 2 children. And he was granted the title licentiate pilot for high seas after passing the government examination for sailors. He was also a member of Hong Kong Revolutionary Committee that tried to convince also Emilio Aguinaldo during his exile part in armed Revelation against Spaniard. Juan Luna's painting illustrate literary and historical scenes that carry political commentaries. The most important work of Luna is Spolarium. Spolarium was the largest painting in Philippines. And now, Spolarium is displayed in main gallery of the National Museum of Fine Arts. And Spolarium, it won 3 gold medals in the 1884 Association National with various artists in the field. And another work of Luna is La Muerte de Cleopatra. And in English, The Death of Cleopatra. It also won a silver medal in 1881. And his also famous artwork, The Battle of Lepanto. It is one the painting of Juan Luna also, and it won the gold medal in 1888. Aside from the award-winning painting of Juan Luna, he is also renowned for the remarkable works, which is the Il Pacto de Sangre, the Parisian Life, and the Portrait of Lady.
Good day, everyone. I am Charity Amparado from BE's ED1 Batch 2. Today, I will be reporting about the Section 5 Mga Gunita ng Himagsikan ni Emilio Aguinaldo and Section 6 The Act of Declarations of Philippine Independence and Bronzo Yanzaris Bautista. Let us discuss first the life of Emilio Aguinaldo. By the way, who is Emilio Aguinaldo? Okay, Emilio Aguinaldo, as far as I remember in my high school life, he was a revolutionary leader of anti-colonial struggle for independence and the first president of the Philippine Republic. Okay, Emilio Aguinaldo Sr. was born on March 22, 1869 in Kawit, Cavite. He was the 7th among the 8 children of Carlos Jamel Aguinaldo and Trinidad Pemi Aguinaldo. Aguinaldo's family was well off since his father was the community's appointed Gobernador Celio of their pueblo. Emilio attended high school at the Colegio de San Juan de Letran, but had to stop on his 4th year because of his father's death. He then took the responsibility of helping his mother run their farm. In 1895, at the age of 25, he became a Kawit first Gobernador Celio, Capitan Municipal. Aguinaldo became a Freemason during this year, joining Pilar Lodge number 203 Imus, Cavite with the code name Colon. The first wife of Emilio Aguinaldo is Hilaria del Rosario de Aguinaldo in 1877 to 1921. Formerly a municipal captain, Aguinaldo led fought many hard battles against the Spain government, achieving many victories, earning him the grade of general. His notable activities include the Battle of Imus, the Battle of Biakayan, the Battle of Zapote Bridge in 1895, the Battle of Talisay. The revolutionary government under Aguinaldo continued their fight until most provinces were liberated. June 12, 1898, he proclaimed the Philippine independence, ending more than 3 countries of oppressive Spanish rule, as the flag was waving from a window at Aguinaldo's house in Kawit. The Filipino army were defeated easily in conventional battle. It was shifted to guerrilla warfare. The result of the war cost is 20,000 Filipino soldiers died and 4,000 American soldiers died, and more than 100,000 civilians died after a long resistance struggle. Emilio Aguinaldo was captured in Palanan, Isabela by Americans with the aid of Macabebe Scout. Aguinaldo married his second wife, Maria Agoncillo. under the U.S. Commonwealth government in 1935. He ran for president but lost in Manuel Quezon. In 1942, the successful Imperial Japanese invasion of the Philippines during the World War II. Aguinaldo cooperated with the Japanese, making the speeches and radio address to surrender in order to spare innocent of the Filipino youth. I was remember the fight I led. We were outnumbered 2 in a constant retreat. After the Japanese formally surrendered, in the end of the World War II, Aguinaldo was arrested as a collaborator but was later freed in a general amnesty and was subsequently exonerated. Aguinaldo's dream was fulfilled during 1946 as the United States requested its sovereignty over the Philippines and recognized the independence of the Republic of the Philippines. In 1962, Aguinaldo was rushed to the Veterans Memorial Medical Center in Quezon City. February 6, 1964, former President Emilio Aguinaldo died of coronary thrombosis at the age of 94. He left with the unrivaled legacy, the Philippine flag, the Philippine national anthem, the national holiday, Rizal Day, the Independence Day. Despite his sacrifices and contribution for the nation, he was branded a traitor by a new generation misguidedly due to the death of Andres Bonifacio and Antonio Lona. General Emilio Aguinaldo was very incarnation of Filipino desire for liberty and freedom, and his country's owned him much. His struggle for Philippine independence, his love of freedom, and his devotion to country will continue to inspire his people. His monument is the Republic of the Philippines.
Everyone, my name is Maiden Insaroy, DS81, Major English Batch 2. Now I'm going to report about our topic in Module 2, Section 7, which is entitled Philippine Cartons, Political Caricatures of the American Era. Under the American rule, there are some who express their content with the American rule by political cartons. One is Alfred McCoy, who was born on June 8, 1945 in Massachusetts, USA. He studied Philippine political caricatures to understand the social and political context of the Philippines, and later worked with Alfredo Roses, his co-author of Philippine Cartons, Political Caricatures of the American Era. His interest in them urged him to compile such caricatures from various sources to produce a single collection. Second is Alfred Reyes Roses, who was born on April 29, 1923. He was a painter and essayist, and a versatile artist who is considered to be a prominent figure in Philippine art. His paintings started with a figurative style and turned to amalgamate expressionism, fauvism, and impressionism.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Castellon from BS1 Major in English. In Section 8, I will discuss about the Filipino grievances against Governor Watt. The author of this document is Gregorio Zaidi. Gregorio Zaidi was born on May 25, 1907 in Pagsanjan, Laguna, and he died on October 31, 1988. He is a Filipino historian, author, and politician. Zaidi is the one of the founder of the International Association of Historians of Asia and served as president of the Philippine Association for 3 years. He also graduated in the University of the Philippines, Manila, and University of Santo Tomas, and he serves as mayor from 1971 to 1975. In his hometown. Gregorio was the most prolific Filipino historian of this time. He have written so different books on Philippine history. One of his greatest works in Filipino grievances against Governor Wood is a document which was a form of protest and or impeachment against Governor General Leonard Wood, as the primary sources say. We can find the documentary sources of Philippine history written by Zaidi himself. The document was approved by the Commission on Independence on November 17, 1926. The document was originally published as appendix of Maximo M. Calau's Philippine government under the Jones Law. Leonard Wood arrived in the Philippine Islands in 1903 after his services in Cuba. He was appointed governor of Moro Province, comprising the southern island and Mindanao. Aside from being the hand of the civil government, he is also responsible for 5 districts and the commanding general of the troops in the Department of Mindanao and Sulu as well. In 1921, U.S. President Warren Harding commissioned the Wood Forbes mission headed by former Governor General Cameron Forbes and General Wood. The mission aims was to assist if the Philippines could already be declared an independent nation. Following the Philippinization policy implemented by the administration of Francis Gordon Harrison, the policy allowed Filipinos to be actively involved in running the government as part of the American policy of benevolent assimilation. The findings of the mission showed that the Philippines still needed the Americans. As a response, U.S. President Calvin Coolidge appointed Major General Wood to be the Governor General of the Philippine Island in 1923. Wood's appointment was greatly accepted by the Filipinos considering his role in the liberation of Cuba, giving Filipinos high hopes for political emancipation. However, Wood was responsible for reversing the Philippinization policy implemented by Fortune. He issued Executive Order No. 37, which nullified laws creating the Board of Control and the assumed functions of the body. The Board of Control, which was dominantly composed of Filipinos, was tasked to oversee the sale and management of stocks in government-owned and controlled corporations. In an unprecedented move, Governor Wood tried to dissolve the Board of Control, where he occupied a minority position and could never get the consent from the Senate President and the House Speakers to enable the government to administer or conduct a business. Such attempt generated tension between Filipino administrators and the government general, which was further aggravated by the cabinet crisis of 1923. Stemming from the Ray Conley case, a secret service detective accused of accepting bribery and having mistresses. The case was brought forward and was given the final decision of suspension by Jose P. Laurel as the Secretary of the Interior. However, this was disregarded by Governor Wood, which prompted the Filipino leaders to protest against his actions in relation to his defiance of the Filipino Autonomy Act or the Jones Law that provided Filipinos legislative power. Such led to the resignation of 5 Filipino cabinet secretaries of the department led by Secretary Laurel. It was followed by the resignation of Senate President Manuel L. Quezon and his House Speaker Manuel Rojas as the members of the Council of the State. That's all. Thank you.
And this time, I'm going to report and continue about Section 9. Entitled Corazon C. Aquino's speech before the United States Congress on September 18, 1986. On September 18, 1986, President Corazon C. Aquino was invited to deliver a speech before the United States Congress in recognition of the peaceful INSA revolution which ousted Marcos. It featured investigate articles regarding the country's development. It had a personal tone since it was not tied to a particular political party. It also advocated integrity, democracy, and Philippine national progress. There are also publications that discuss political issues. Here are some. Ipag Kalabaw is a publication that maintained anonymity but not having a masthead, and by having the artist and writer use pen names, and was launched in the same year as Philippines Free Press and published in Tagalog and Spanish containing satiric cartoons. The Independent was founded in 1915 by the father of Cebuano letters, Vicente Soto, one of the militant and aggressive advocates of immediate independence. It was a weekly newspaper published in English and Spanish, which serves as a forum of the discussion of political issues. It was also Ferdinand Amorsolo began his career as the agriest of Manila's political cartoonist. And Bagong Kusog was a popular newspaper, which means New Force was known for highlighting the conditions in Cebu prior to the war. It often talked about the differences between the Spanish and American colonial governments. This newspaper depicted the breakdown of hallowed customs and social practices due to American influence. It focused on education and criticism. There are relevant publications that help spread information about the situation in the Philippines and contributed in the history of the Philippines.